Damon's heart sank. Pierce smiled. Behind him the shadows writhed. Not like smoke and not like fog, but like something with intention. The darkness thickened in layers that did not belong in a normal forest. Trees leaned inward, as if the night wanted to listen. Stefan moved half a step in front of Elena without even thinking. Caroline's hand tightened on Bonnie's arm, not holding her back, just grounding her. Rick's eyes flicked across the tree line, calculating exits, angles, distance. Damon stayed still. His face did not change much, but the air around him did. Like the part of him that used to enjoy danger had just met something it could not charm. Pierce's voice drifted through the clearing like a secret meant only for Damon. "You opened the door," Damon's jaw clenched. "I turned you. That's not a door. That's a bad decision with teeth." Pierce's smile widened slightly. "You made it sound so small." Bonnie took one careful step forward. Magic flickered across her fingers like a warning sign that the universe refused to ignore. "It's not just him," she said, voice tight. "It's behind him. It's using him." The shadows surged once, as if they reacted to being noticed. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. She felt the pressure too. Not pain, but weight. Like the world had gained an extra layer and it was pressing down on her chest. "What is it?" Elena asked. Pierce tilted his head, as if considering whether she deserved an answer. "Something that learned patience," he said softly. "Something that learned names." Damon took a slow step forward. Stefan caught his shoulder. "Damon," Stefan said, low. Damon shrugged him off. "I'm not letting him monologue his way into my town." Pierce's gaze stayed on Damon. Calm, composed, almost respectful, like he had been practicing this moment for a century. "I didn't come back for revenge," Pierce said. "Revenge is a young man's hobby. I came back because the breach is hungry, and it remembers the first blood that fed it." Rick's grip tightened around the Hunter Records page, the paper already crumpled from his fist. "You said the Shade was a fragment," Rick said. "A scout." Pierce's smile did not change, but the shadows behind him did. They pressed forward like a crowd at a door. "A scout," Pierce repeated. "A hand, a whisper, a taste." Caroline's voice came out sharp. "And the real thing is what, exactly?" Bonnie inhaled, eyes half closing like she was listening to a frequency that made her head ache. "It's old," she said again. "Older than witch lines. Older than vampire lines. It's like it existed before anyone started giving names to monsters." Pierce nodded, pleased. "She hears it." Damon's voice dropped. "Stop talking about it like it's a pet." Pierce's eyes glowed faintly with that unholy shimmer again. "It's not a pet. It's a force, and it does not care about your rules." The shadows moved, not rushing, not attacking. They reached out like fingers searching for something familiar in the air. Damon felt it like a tug in his bones, a cold pull behind his ribs, not painful yet, but intimate in the worst way, like the darkness had found the outline of him. Elena noticed Damon's expression tighten. She stepped closer to him. "Damon," she said, quiet. He did not look at her. Stefan did. Stefan's voice was controlled but urgent. "We leave, now." Damon laughed once, short and bitter. "You want to run?" "I want to regroup," Stefan said. "There is a difference." Pierce's voice softened. "You can regroup all you want. The seam is already open, and it opens wider when it tastes fear." Bonnie's hands lifted slightly. "Stop talking." Pierce's eyes flicked to her. "Try stopping it." The shadows surged forward in a sudden wave. Caroline moved first, vamp speed snapping her into motion. She grabbed Elena's wrist and yanked her sideways as a tendril cut through the space Elena had been standing in. The tendril did not slice flesh. It sliced heat. The air turned colder where it passed. Elena shivered hard, teeth clenching. Stefan flashed forward, slamming his shoulder into the shadow mass like it had a body. It recoiled, not from pain, but from kinetic force, like pushing a storm and getting it to blink. Damon moved too, fast, furious. He aimed for Pierce. Pierce did not flinch. Damon's hand closed around Pierce's throat, and for half a second Damon felt real contact. Warmish skin. A pulse that felt wrong. Not fully human, not fully vampire. Pierce's voice stayed calm. "You shouldn't use your strength on me," Damon snarled, veins pulsing under his eyes. "I shouldn't do a lot of things. Doesn't stop me." Pierce placed his hand over Damon's wrist, right over the veins. Cold flooded Damon's arm, seeping into his bones like something trying to learn his shape. Damon's grip faltered, not from weakness, from a sensation that felt like being recognized. Damon ripped his hand back, shaking it out hard. Stefan was already beside him, eyes locked on Pierce. "What did he do?" Stefan asked. Damon's voice came out rough. "He didn't do it. The thing did." Bonnie stepped forward and threw her hand out, magic blasting in a bright arc. The shadow tendril recoiled, smoke curling back. The air around Bonnie trembled. Her breath shook, but she held. "We need to close the seam," Bonnie said. "Not fight the fragments. It will keep throwing pieces at us until we're tired." Rick glanced at the trees. "Where is the seam strongest?" Pierce answered like he had been waiting for the question. "The cemetery," he said. "The boundary is thin there. The dead make it easier. Grief makes it easier." Damon's eyes sharpened. "Of course it's the cemetery." Caroline grabbed Damon's sleeve and jerked him back a step as another tendril snapped toward him. "Less. Complaining," Caroline snapped. "More not dying." Eleanor's gaze locked on Pierce. "Why are you inviting it? Why would you want that?" Pierce looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled politely, the way someone smiles when they have already decided the outcome. "Because I remember what it feels like to be powerless," Pierce said, "and I don't plan on feeling that again." The shadows surged again, broader this time. Bonnie shouted, "Move!" They split instinctively. Stefan and Caroline went left, pulling Elena with them. Rick grabbed Matt by the arm and yanked him back toward the tree line. Damon stayed a beast too long, staring at Pierce like he wanted to crush history with his hands. Pierce leaned forward slightly, voice soft, almost kind. "It wants you, Damon. Not because you are strong, because you are messy, because you leave doors open." Damon's face hardened. He didn't answer with words. He vamp sped, not at Pierce, but toward the town, toward the road, toward the only thought that mattered. If the breach was going to widen, he would not let it widen in the woods where anything could happen. He would drag this fight into a place with rules. The road felt too empty. Fog pressed against the asphalt like a living thing. Streetlights flickered with a faint pulse, on and off, like the town itself was blinking in fear. Damon appeared near the edge of the road, chest rising even though he did not need air. Stefan and Elena arrived a second later, Caroline right behind them with Bonnie and Rick and Matt trailing. Matt stumbled, breath ragged, eyes wild. "Why does every normal night turn into this?" Caroline shot him a look. "Welcome to Mystic Falls." Bonnie was pale. She rubbed at her temple like the air had needles in it. "It's following," Bonnie said. As if to prove her right, the fog on the road thickened. The temperature dropped again, fast enough that Matt's breath came out in a visible puff. Rick pulled Matt closer behind him. "Stay behind me." Matt scoffed, weak. "That's new." Rick glanced back. "No, that's survival." Damon's eyes tracked the fog. He could hear it, not sound, pressure. Like a low voice humming in a language that did not want to be translated. Pierce's figure appeared at the far end of the road, walking like he had all the time in the world. The shadows followed him, not attached like a tail, but orbiting like a threat. Elena stepped forward, anger sharpening her fear. "Stop!" Pierce paused. He looked almost human under the streetlight, except for the way the light seemed to avoid his eyes. "You can't stop what's already started," Pierce said. Damon laughed. "You're really enjoying the cryptic thing." Pierce's smile flickered. "It's not for you, it's for it." Bonnie's hands lifted again, magic flaring. "I can hold it back," she said. "Not forever, but long enough to get to the cemetery." Stefan nodded. "Then we go now." Caroline glanced toward town. "What about people? There are houses everywhere." Rick's face tightened. "We keep it away from them. We pull it to the cemetery. We end it there." Damon's gaze stayed on Pierce. "And if we can't?" No one answered that, because nobody wanted to. Damon's mouth tightened. "Fine," he said. "Field trip to the dead people place. Again." Sheriff Forbes sat at her desk, paperwork spread out like a wall she could hide behind. The town had been too quiet. That always meant something was coming. A deputy leaned in with a nervous look. "Sheriff, another call about the woods." She looked up slowly. "What now?" "Hikers said they saw a man near the old cemetery road. They said the air felt wrong, like it got cold." Forbes's expression changed in a way only people who lived in Mystic Falls understood. Not panic, not surprise, recognition. "Stay out of that area," she said. "Tell everyone to go home. Tell them it's unsafe." The deputy hesitated. "Do we put out an alert?" She stood. "I'll handle it." Her phone buzzed. Caroline's name flashed on the screen. Forbes answered immediately. "Caroline?" Her daughter's voice came fast. "Mum?" "I need you to trust me and I need you to do exactly what I say." Forbes's jaw tightened. "Is this one of those nights?" Caroline did not deny it. "Yes." Forbes closed her eyes briefly. Then she opened them and her voice turned calm, decisive. "Tell me, Vance," she said. Caroline spoke quickly. "Clear the roads near the cemetery. Keep people inside. No curious deputies. No volunteers. Nobody, not tonight." Forbes's eyes narrowed. "Caroline, what is happening?" Caroline hesitated for half a second. "Something old, something bad. We're handling it." Forbes exhaled slowly. "You better." Caroline's voice softened just a fraction. "We will." Forbes hung up and grabbed her jacket. She turned to the deputy. "Put out an advisory. Curfew. Road closures. If anyone asks why, tell them there's a chemical spill. I don't care. Make them believe it." The deputy blinked. "Chemical spill?" Forbes's voice turned sharp. "Now." She moved toward the door with purpose. Not because she could fight what awaited in the cemetery, because she was a mother and sheriff, and Mystic Falls only survived when someone held the normal world together while the supernatural tore at the seams. The cemetery gates creaked as they pushed through. The air inside felt different, heavier, as if the ground remembered every secret it had ever swallowed. Moonlight washed over headstones and the mausoleum stood like a dark tooth against the sky. Bonnie stepped onto the path and stopped. Her face tightened, breath catching. "It's here," she whispered. Damon looked around, eyes scanning the shadows. "Of course it's here." Stefan's voice stayed controlled. "Where is Pierce?" The answer came in a calm voice behind them. "Still chasing ghosts, Damon." Damon froze. He knew that voice too well. Pierce stepped out from behind the mausoleum, hands folded loosely, posture composed like he was attending a quiet service. Behind him, the shadows gathered again, thicker than before. The seam in the air shimmered faintly. Almost invisible unless you looked wrong at it. Bonnie lifted her hand. Magic flickered. Damon's veins pulsed for a split second, then he forced them back down. Pierce watched him like he enjoyed the effort it cost. "You're supposed to be dead," Damon said, voice harder than he intended. Pierce did not flinch. "You, of all people, should know death is a temporary inconvenience." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Why are you doing this?" Pierce looked at her, and for a second the politeness cracked into something colder. "Because I was made into a monster by accident," Pierce said. "And then something taught me how to be one on purpose." Bonnie staggered suddenly. Her hand flew to her head. Stefan caught her immediately. "What is it?" Stefan asked. Bonnie's breath shook. "There's something attached to him. It's ancient. It's not compulsions. It's not a spell. It's like a parasite on his soul." Pierce smiled politely. "She's perceptive. I like her." Damon Vamp sped so fast the air cracked. He slammed Pierce against the mausoleum by the throat. Veins burst beneath Damon's eyes, fangs bared, rage uncoiled. "What did you bring into my town?" Damon snarled. Pierce didn't react. His voice remained soft, steady. "You shouldn't use your strength on me, Damon." "Oh," Damon growled. "Why's that?" Pierce placed a hand over Damon's wrist. Damon felt something cold seeping. Burning. Not like magic. Not like vampire compulsion. Something worse. His grip faltered. Pierce stepped away effortlessly, leaving Damon shaking out his hand like he wanted the sensation gone. "I'm not your enemy," Pierce said gently, "but I'm not your friend either." Stefan moved to Damon's side instantly. "What did he do to you?" "I don't know," Damon muttered, ununnerved, "but I hate it." Pierce looked at them all. "There are things you don't understand yet. Things I had to learn the hard way. I survived because something found me. Something that feeds on power, on bloodlines, on mistakes." Bonnie shivered. "It's marked him." Pierce nodded slightly. "And soon it will mark others." Elena stepped forward. "Why are you warning us?" Pierce turned his head toward her. "Because Damon is the one thing it wants most. What he did to me opened a door, and it doesn't close easily." Elena's gaze flicked to Damon. Her voice dropped. "Damon." Pierce's smile sharpened. "He tells you he's changed. Maybe he has, but the past still knows his name." The seam shimmered again, the air dropped colder, then the shadows exploded outward. Not one shade this time. Two. They formed fast, twisting into shapes that looked like people at a distance, then wrung up close. Their edges rippled like smoke trapped under skin. Matt stumbled back, fear punching through him. "That is not normal," Caroline snapped. "Nothing here is normal," Bonnie shouted. "Move!" They split. Caroline Vamp sped left, dragging Damon Butler with her because Damon was stubborn enough to stand still out of spite. Bonnie rolled right, magic ferring in a tight sphere around her. One shade swiped at Caroline. She ducked under it and leapt upward, grabbing a branch and flipping behind it. Even at vampire speed, the thing moved nearly as fast. It turned mid-air and swiped again. Damon shoved Caroline out of the way, taking the hit himself. The energy burned through his veins like ice and ash. His daylight ring flickered. "Damon!" Caroline screamed. He fell to one knee, hands trembling. Bonnie blasted the shade off him with another surge of power, her voice cracking with effort. "We can't beat it like this." "Then we change the rules," Damon growled, pushing himself upright. A new voice echoed through the graves. "No, you weaken it first." Stefan and Rick emerged, Matt leaning weakly behind them. Rick held an old iron spearhead, glowing faintly with runes. "Pierce was restrained once," Rick said breathlessly. "Hunters used these, iron forged with witch blood." Damon's eyes sharpened. "And you didn't mention this earlier because—" "I only just found it," Rick snapped. The two shades converged, merging back into one massive shape, thicker, heavier. Stefan Vamp sped next to Damon, steadying him. "Ready?" "No," Damon said. "Let's go anyway." The shade lunged. Bonnie dropped to her knees, hands pressed into the earth as she channeled deeper. The ground around her glowed faintly, ancestral energy rippling in patterns. "Stefan!" she yelled. "Drive it toward the sigil." Stefan moved, becoming a blur. He struck the shade with vamp speed kicks and bursts of force, redirecting it. Even when his blows passed through, the shade reacted to the kinetic energy like it could be bullied. Caroline joined him, movements sharper, faster, distracting, darting, pushing it closer. Damon forced himself upright. "My turn!" He vamp sped directly behind the shade and shoved it forward with everything he had left. The shade staggered, right into Bonnie's glowing trap. Magic surged upward, engulfing the shadow. It shrieked silently, form distorting violently. "Now!" Bonnie cried. Rick hurled the iron spearhead. Stefan caught it mid-air and slammed it into the center of the shade's chest. For a moment there was pure stillness. Then the shade exploded in a burst of dark vapor that rushed through the cemetery like a wind. Damon stumbled back, chest heaving. Caroline caught him again. "Is it dead?" Matt asked weakly. No one answered yet. Bonnie stood shakily, breathing hard, magic dimming around her fingers. "I weakened it, she said. "I didn't destroy it. What?" "It's tied to Pierce." Damon spat blood to the side. "Then we hunt Pierce." Stefan helped him upright. Damon didn't push him away this time. Rick stepped clone. "There's something else." Everyone turned. Rick held up another page from the Hunter records. "This shade," Rick said, "was only the beginning. It's a scout. A fragment. The real entity T is still on the other side of the breach. Damon's voice dropped. And Pierce, Rick swallowed. Pierce is the door, the anchor, and he's guiding it. A soft, cold voice drifted through the clearing. Not guiding. Everyone froze. Damon stiffened. Inviting, the voice whispered. Pierce stood at the edge of the cemetery path, calm as moonlight, hands folded behind his back, eyes glowing faintly with an unholy shimmer. I told you, Damon, he said softly. You opened the door. Behind him, the shadows writhed, growing, deepening, alive. Damon's heart sank, and Pierce smiled. Nobody moved for a beat, not because they could not, but because the air felt like it had thickened into something you could choke on. The shadow behind Pierce did not rush. It waited. That was the worst part. It waited like it was sure. Bonnie's fingers trembled. She tried to hide it by clenching her fists. It's not coming through fully, she whispered. It can't. Not yet. It needs a stronger anchor. Rick's voice was tight. Pierce, Bonnie nodded. And Damon. Damon's face did not change much, but Elena saw the way his eyes went hard. She stepped closer and spoke softly. Look at me, she said. Damon did not. Pierce watched the moment like it entertained him. She thinks she can pull you back from anything, Pierce said. That's adorable. Elena's eyes flashed. Stop, Pierce smiled. Stop what? Seeking, breathing, existing? You're not the one it wants. Damon finally looked up. His voice was cold. Say one more word to her, and I will make sure you remember what fear is. Pierce's calm did not break. You can try. The shadows shifted. A low vibration rolled through the graves. The seam shimmered again, and for a split second the air looked thinner there, like a mirror that wanted to crack. Bonnie's eyes widened. It's opening wider. Rick glanced at the spearhead still in Stefan's hand. We need to use that on Pierce. Stefan's jaw clenched. We don't even know if it works. Rick's voice sharpened. It worked once. It's all we have. Damon's mouth twisted. I love plans built on desperation. Caroline grabbed Damon's sleeve. Then stop whining and march move. Bonnie took a shaky breath. If we pin Pierce close enough to the seam, I can try to stitch it shut. But I need time. Matt swallowed hard. How much time? Bonnie looked at him. Enough time that something tries to kill us while I do it. Matt nodded, as if that made sense, which was the saddest part. Pierce's eyes flicked to Bonnie, then back to Damon. Do it, Pierce said softly. Try to close it. It will only open again, because it knows your blood now. Damon took a slow step forward. Then maybe I'll drain my own blood into a bathtub and mail it out of town. Pierce chuckled. It doesn't want your blood in a bottle. It wants your blood in you. It wants the choices you make, the guilt you carry. Elena's grip tightened on Damon's arm. Pierce leaned slightly toward Damon, voice almost intimate. You pretend you're different now, he said. You still have Katherine's shadow in your mouth every time you kiss her. Elena's expression tightened. The name hit like a bruise. Damon's face went dead still. Then he moved. He sped straight for Pierce. Stefan moved too, right with him. Caroline followed. Rick stayed with Matt instinctively, keeping him behind the headstones. Bonnie raised her hands, and the air around her flickered with power. She set her feet like she was bracing against a storm. Damon slammed Pierce into the mausoleum again. Stefan pinned him from the other side. Caroline grabbed Pierce's wrist, twisting hard, not because it would hurt, but because it would control. Pierce did not fight like a vampire. He shifted. His body blurred at the edges, thinning like smoke, reforming half a step away, calm again. Caroline cursed. Stop doing that! Stefan's eyes narrowed. That is not vampire speed. Pierce's smile returned. Evolution is complicated. Rick stepped in fast, spearhead raised. Pierce looked at it, and for the first time his calm flickered. Just a twitch, just a microsecond of caution. Damon noticed. He grinned without humour. Oh, you don't like that? Pierce's eyes flashed. That thing doesn't scare me. Damon's voice dropped. Then why are you blinking? Rick moved and drove the spearhead forward. Pierce tried to shift again. Bonnie shouted something under her breath and the air snapped. Pierce's shift stuttered, like his body hit a wall. Rick's spearhead sank into Pierce's side and pinned him to the stone. Pierce gasped, not in pain like a vampire, but in shock like something deeper had been hooked. The shadows behind him screamed without sound. They surged forward. Stefan threw himself between the shadow and Rick. Caroline grabbed Elena and pulled her back. Damon stood over Pierce, eyes blazing. "You wanted a door," Damon said. "Congratulations, you're nailed to the frame." Pierce's breath came shallow. "You don't understand what you just did." Bonnie stepped forward, hands raised, face pale. Blood had started to spot beneath her nose. "I understand enough," she said. "Rick, keep him pinned. Stefan, Caroline. Hold the perimeter. Elena." Elena looked hard at her. "What?" Bonnie's eyes flicked to Damon. "I need Damon's blood." Damon barked a laugh. "Of course you do." Bonnie's voice turned sharp. "Willingly. I need the tether to flip. I need it to become a seal, not a lure." Damon stared at her. The sarcasm tried to rise. It failed. Elena stepped closer to Damon, voice low. "Do it." Damon looked at her. "If this goes wrong?" Elena cut him off. "It won't." Damon's jaw tightened. He bit his wrist quickly and held it out toward Bonnie. Bonnie grabbed his wrist and let the blood drip onto the ground near the seam. The earth shimmered faintly. The seam reacted. It pulled. Damon's knees bent slightly as if something had hooked him from the inside. Elena grabbed his other hand and held tight. "Damon," she said. His voice came rough. "I'm fine." "You're not," Elena said. Damon's laugh was strained. "I'm coping." Bonnie's eyes glowed faintly. She began to speak in a language that sounded older than Latin. The air vibrated. The ground around the seam lit in thin lines like cracks filled with moonlight. Pierce's body jerked. "Stop! If you close it, it will rip me apart!" Rick's face stayed hard. "That was your choice." Pierce's gaze snapped to Damon, desperate now. "You owe me!" Damon stared down at him. His voice came quiet. "I did owe you. Past tense." The seam shuddered. The shadows surged forward like a tide. Caroline moved, Vamp speeding in a tight circle, her movements a blur, forcing the shadow tendrils to follow her instead of Bonnie. "Over here," Caroline snapped. "Come on, I'm delicious. Ask anyone." Stefan slammed into a tendril like it had mass. It recoiled, twisting around him, cold seeping into his arm. Stefan's expression tightened, but he did not let go. Elena's eyes sharpened. She heard the seam, not sound. Whispers, soft and cold. It sounded like her own voice for a second, then like Katherine's. Elena flinched. Pierce smiled faintly through pain. "It knows faces too?" Elena stepped forward, anger cutting through her fear. "Not today." She grabbed a nearby lantern from a grave marker, smashed it into the stone, then snatched the burning cloth and threw it toward the thickest part of the shadow. Fire did not burn it like flesh, but it made it recoil, like the heat offended it. Bonnie's voice rose, strong despite the blood at her nose. The seal lines on the ground brightened. The seam began to close. The shadows screamed without sound again, thrashing, trying to pull free. Damon felt the pull intensify. It yanked at him like a chain. His face tightened, veins threatening. Bonnie snapped. "Damon, reject it. You have to choose." Damon's mouth twisted. "I am choosing." Bonnie's eyes locked on him. "Then say it. Mean it." Damon stared at the seam like it was a face. His voice dropped. Firm. Ugly. Real. "No!" The seam shuddered. Damon swallowed, forcing the word out again. "No!" He tightened his grip on Elena's hand. "No, you don't get me. You don't get my town. You don't get to turn my mistakes into a doorway." The seam snapped inward like a wound stitching shut. The shadows whipped wildly, then collapsed back, dragged toward whatever waited beyond. Pierce screamed, not from pain but from loss, like something inside him was being ripped out. Then it was over. The seam vanished. The air warmed by a fraction. The cemetery breathed again. Bonnie swayed. Elena caught her instantly. Bonnie's voice came weak. It's sealed. For now. Damon stood still, staring at the spot where the seam had been. Caroline let out a shaky breath and tried to cover it with sarcasm. Normal Tuesday? Rick did not smile. He stared at Pierce, still pinned to stone, eyes dimmer now. Stefan stepped closer. What are you now? Ooh. Pierce's voice came rough. Empty! Damon's gaze stayed on Pierce. Good. Pierce lifted his eyes to Damon. Hatred and something like relief tangled together. It will remember you. Pierce whispered. Damon leaned in, voice low. Let it. Matt lay on a bed with a bruise blooming on his collarbone, and the expression of a man who had survived something he still did not understand. Caroline stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, face set, trying to look like she was not scared. You're okay, she said. Matt stared at her. That's your version of comfort. Caroline rolled her eyes. You're alive. That's comfort. The door opened and Sheriff Forbes stepped in, eyes sharp, jaw tight. She took one look at Matt and then looked at Caroline. Her tone was controlled. Caroline's face shifted, just slightly. The daughter showed for a second. Mom, Caroline said. Forbes lowered her voice. Do I need to ask questions I don't want answers to? Caroline hesitated and then spoke carefully. No, because you won't like the answers. Forbes stared at her for a long beat. Then her voice softened, almost imperceptibly. Are you safe? She asked. Caroline nodded. For tonight. Forbes exhaled, a quiet release. Then she looked at Matt. You, she said, you stay inside. If you see anything strange, you call me. Do you understand? Matt nodded quickly. Yes, Mom. Forbes's eyes returned to Caroline. You come home. Caroline sighed like a teenager, even though she was not. I will, she said. Soon. Forbes held her gaze, then turned and left. She did not look back. Caroline watched the door close and swallowed hard. Matt's voice came quiet. Your mum knows. Caroline's voice came quieter. She knows enough. The house felt calm again, but the calm was thin, like a sheet over something broken. Pierce sat in the basement, restrained, the spearhead removed, but the wound still healing slowly in a way that looked wrong for a vampire. Vervain burned faintly in the air. Upstairs, Damon stood by the fireplace with a fresh glass of bourbon. He did not drink it. Elena stepped up beside him, close but not pressing. Her ring caught the firelight. You did it, she said softly. Damon stared into the glass. Bonnie did it. Eleanor's voice stayed steady. You did your part. Damon's mouth tightened. My part was saying no to something I couldn't see while it tried to rip me open. Very heroic. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Stop pretending it didn't matter. Damon glanced at her. For a second the sarcasm dropped. It mattered, he admitted. A beat passed. Elena's voice came lower. Pierce tried to get under my skin. Damon's expression hardened. He used Katherine. Elena nodded. Damon's jaw clenched. I hate that he thinks he can use her name like a weapon. Elena turned to face him fully. Don't let it work. Damon's laugh was quiet. You mean don't let my century of bad decisions turn into a personality trait? Eleanor's eyes held his. I mean, don't let Katherine live here. Not in your head, not in mine. Damon stared at her for a long moment. Then he set the glass down untouched. Okay, he said. Elena's hand slid into his. Not dramatic, just real. Stefan appeared in the doorway, expression controlled, eyes watchful. The seal is holding, Stefan said. Bonnie's resting. Rick is checking the hunter records again. Damon glanced at him. Of course he is. Stefan stepped closer. This isn't over. Damon's smile returned, thin and dangerous. Nothing ever is. Rick walked in from the study holding a page that looked older than it should. His face was tight. I found something, Rick said. Damon's expression flattened. Why do I feel like that sentence ruins my night? Rick held the page up. The entity has a name in the old Hunter records. They called it Nightshade. Damon frowned. That's a plant. Rick's voice stayed serious. They used the name because it poisons from the inside. It can't cross without a door, but when it finds a door, it leaves a claim on what it wants. Elena's grip tightened on Damon's hand. Damon's eyes narrowed. A claim? How? Cooch hesitated, then looked at Damon's wrist. Damon followed his gaze. For a second there was nothing. Then under Damon's skin, faint as a bruise, a shadow-dark symbol pulsed once like a heartbeat that did not belong to him. Damon's face went still. Elena's voice came sharp. Damon! Bonnie appeared at the edge of the hall, pale, exhausted, nose still faintly bloodied. She looked at Damon's wrist and her expression tightened. It marked you, she said. Damon stared at the symbol and forced a laugh that did not sound like laughter. Great, he said. Now I'm a haunted house with excellent cheekbones. Bonnie's voice did not soften. It will try again, not tonight, but soon. Stefan's jaw clenched. Then we prepare. Caroline walked in, hair pulled back, eyes sharp like she had already started planning in her head. New rule, she said. Nobody goes anywhere alone. Also, I'm making a list. Damon looked at her. Of course you are, Caroline glared. You're welcome. Downstairs in the Potemmet, Pierce lifted his head suddenly, like he heard something through the walls. His eyes widened. A whisper slid through the house, soft and cold, too faint to be sound, too clear to be ignored. Soon. The lights flickered once, then the house went still again, and nobody slept. So what does the mark mean, and who is Nightshade really? Do you think Damon is the key or the trap? If you want the next part, comment upload part 3.